Hi, and welcome back. Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. The network is American Family Radio Talk Network. Great to have you on board today. The number to call if you want to weigh in on, particularly interested in your reaction to John Boehner surviving barely to become Speaker, and your kind of observations about what you think is going to happen with this debt ceiling showdown. Will the Republicans have the courage to stand for what is right? Barack Obama's thrown down the gauntlet. He's not going to negotiate. He's not even going to consider any kind of spending cuts, any kind of entitlement reform. He just wants more money, period. No strings attached. Do you think that the Republicans will back their bluster up with an actual stand? 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Let's grab clip number 3 if we can, Rob. This is Barack Obama, again, spiking the football and talking about the fact that he pummeled the Republican Party. I mean, there's not a living, breathing soul that thinks that this fiscal cliff deal reflected favorably on the Republicans. Not one. Not even Republicans are out there. You couldn't find a Republican after that vote that would be willing to defend it. And if they did, it was very tepid, kind of hold your nose kind of support. Well, here's Barack Obama dancing on the grave of the Republican Party.
Just recently, Republicans in Congress said they'd never agreed to raise tax rates on the wealthiest Americans. We've now raised those rates permanently, making our tax code more progressive than it's been in decades.
So that's Barack Obama celebrating his triumph. He pummeled the GOP into submission. There is simply no other way to shape that result. Now, here's Charles Krauthammer, clip number 4, talking about what he thinks Obama has managed to do to the House of Representatives, which is run by the GOP. And this is significant in view of the fact that we've got this mother of all battles coming up over the debt ceiling. Here's Charles Krauthammer.
I wrote a month ago that his objective in demanding a hike in tax rates was entirely political because the Speaker offered him the same amount of money by eliminating loopholes. So if he wanted the money, if that's all he wanted was to raise revenues, he was handed to him. But he said, no, you have to raise rates. Why? Because he knew that would accentuate the fractures, the fissures in the Republican Party. It would neutralize the one oppositionist institution, the House of Representatives. That's exactly what happened. He succeeded in that. The House has been neutered. You saw what happened last night. And if he gets the House out of the way, he can then be dominant in Washington for his entire second term.
And I think Krauthammer's partly right that this was a political move on Obama's part to fracture the Republican Party, but I think it's actually more sinister than that. I think the reason that Barack Obama, and I suggested this repeatedly on my program, the reason that Barack Obama wanted an increase in the tax rates, not just an increase in tax revenue from upper income Americans, from job creators, the reason it had to be rates. The rates had to go up for him. He was insistent on that because Boehner offered him more revenue than he got. Boehner went to him and said, look, we can close loopholes. I can give you $800 billion in increased revenue from job creators. But Obama said, no, I want an increase in tax rates. And so President Obama was willing to accept less revenue, $612 billion, in exchange for higher tax rates. Why is that? Because Barack Obama is not interested in revenue. He is interested in punishing success. He wants to punish success. He wants to punish those who have realized the American dream. He wants to cut them down to size. And again, it's part of that thing I talked about yesterday, this greed, this envy, this ongoing dark, ugly violation of the 10th commandment of God, thou shalt not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. That's what drives that kind of covetous greed, is what drives Barack Obama. He has an itchy greed for the money of successful and prosperous Americans. He wants to transfer it to the federal government, take it from them, and stick it in the hands of the federal government. So that is what's going on. I want to see what you think about all of this. Let's go to our phones. Let's go to Frank in Crockett, Texas. Frank, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Hey, what little was left of the Republican Party that had previously sold out the American people, unprincipled, just a degenerate as the Democratic Party. See, the thing is, right now we got one party, okay? They're all together. It's one party, one tyrannical system that's playing one side off the other. In other words, to bankrupt this nation.
So you think that
take our rights away, to take our Second Amendment away, our First Amendment, our Fourth Amendment is gone, thanks to the TSA. In other words, it's a one-party system that's playing the American people against each other also.
So
It's all a big pony show.
So let me ask you this, Frank. So you think that the reelection of Boehner kind of affirms your view that we're basically a one-party government right now. There's really no substantive difference between Republicans and Democrats, and the fiscal cliff vote would tend to support you on that. So let me ask you this. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen on this debt ceiling debate?
They've been working it for decades now, for the last decade or so, but it's really gone into overdrive after Bush's not too big to fail. It should have started when those big multinational banks should have failed, been allowed to fail, and all the bailouts for the unions. You see, it all goes back to that. People got just short memories. Their memories are about 2 seconds long, as long as a commercial.
So back to the debt ceiling. So are you think, Frank, that the Republicans are going to cave on this like they have always in the past?
Absolutely, they're going to cave. They've been caving. They're all the same party anyway. They're in cahoots. That's the thing. What people have to realize, it's the same party. Okay, there's two groups, one with a D and one with an R, but they're all together.
Playing off the same playbook. All right, Frank, listen, I appreciate your call. Thank you for that perspective. Got a lot of people out there, I'm sure, that are kind of agreeing with Frank, and that's what a lot of people are asking. What's the difference? You know, what does the Republican Party stand for? If they're willing to vote for a bill that raises taxes $620 billion and increases the deficit by $3.9 trillion, this Sandy relief bill, it's loaded up with pork for NASCAR and for Hollywood and for algae growers, criminally for algae growers, it's in there. Well, I guess that was in the fiscal cliff deal. I just get confused after a while. It was Alaskan fisheries. That's in the Sandy relief bill. Then you got to start asking the question, what exactly does the Republican Party stand for? Let us go to Gabriel in Vattsdale, North Carolina. Gabriel, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, thanks for taking my call today.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
Hey, I just wanted to make a comment about the tax increases and all. You know what drives me crazy about it is that the American people really think that this is really that the rich and the job creators are going to take this hit. So, for instance, you know, their taxes just went up. Well, they've got to make this money back somehow. So where we used to pay $1.50 for a loaf of bread, well, now it's $5. You know, everything's going to skyrocket because they are not going to take this hit. They're just going to pass it right along to the little guy. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that, Gabriel. It's just a myth because there's only one place that taxes can come from, and that's from working Americans. There's no other place to get it. You can't get it anywhere else. So the corporations are simply going to pass on the increase in their taxes by increasing the price of products. You know, and talking about the hit on everybody, Gabriel, I'm looking at a piece here from hotair.com from this morning. The IRS today released their new withholding tables to reflect the tax increase that 77% of the American people are going to see in their paychecks. You're going to see this in your paycheck. Taxes went up for 77% of the American people. And according to the IRS, a household making $50,000 to $75,000 a year is going to be able to keep $822 less this year than last year. So you just got a tax increase of $822. Your disposable income just shrunk by $822. If you make between $75,000 and $100,000, you're going to lose $1,206 this year. If you make between $200,000 and $500,000, you're going to see a drop of $2,711. The total is $115 billion less in disposable income. Less money going into the economy, instead being sucked into the giant maw of bureaucrat cubicles back in Washington, D.C. Okay, thanks for the call, Gabriel. Appreciate it. Last call of the hour. Let's go to Mark in Sulphur, Louisiana. Mark, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Question here. If they do stand their ground and tell him no, he don't want to negotiate, well, you can't get nothing, but he pull one of his executive orders and just take the money and do what he wants. And I'm trying to be thinking good on this side. You know, I try to explain to people it's like a quarterback in his line. See, a lot of people think, and I'm glad they think this, you know, his supporters think the election is over. I don't think a lot of them going to get up in 2 years and go vote. You see, so I'm trying to think, you know, positive on that side. Have to, you know, just get them jokers out, who's keeping them in, and get him out.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate that call, Mark. Thank you for that. You know, and that's a question that came up today. We were talking about this on today's issues with Tim Wildman, and Tony Perkins was a guest on that program for a while. And what Tim and I and David Capellian from WorldNet Daily, WND, were talking about was what happens if Barack Obama does not get an increase in the debt ceiling. And my guess is, and this was kind of what David Capellian was going to think, he's just going to go right ahead and do it by executive order, and he will cite that part of the Constitution that says the debts of the United States must be honored. But what he's going to do is he's going to change the meaning of the word debt so it refers to all entitlement spending. He's going to treat that as if it were debt. It's not. Entitlement spending is not debt. And so what President Obama is going to do, I predict, if the Republicans hold firm, is he's just going to go ahead and try to raise the debt ceiling on his own by saying we cannot let the United States fall into sovereign default. But we won't be in default unless we don't take just 10% of revenue and apply it to servicing the debt. That's the only way we can go into default. But President Obama is going to try to fool you. He's going to try to lie to you. And Republicans, frankly, have helped him because they've used the word default to refer to things other than default. They've expanded the definition because they want to justify their decision to raise the debt ceiling. And in that case, the only solution will be impeachment. The Republicans in the House are going to have to file articles of impeachment against Barack Obama. And, of course, he would not get convicted because that goes to the Senate. They'll exonerate him. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 5.